I would be presenting today's webinar as of today for the Digital Fraud Prevention Best Techniques 2023, the Alternative Data True Power. Now, we believe that exploring the new methods of risk assessment give much better results in terms of online fraud fighting than another superficial set of risk markers, which may be used as filters for automatic denial. Today, we are going to talk about the best way to mitigate risk for online businesses, and we will see some successful use cases today. Amid rapid economic growth of fintech industry, which we have witnessed for the last few years in Southeast Asia region, along with the opportunities global digitalization has brought us risk, the emerge of a large number of online businesses inevitably leads to fraudulent traffic. And based on our experience in dozens of countries, we spot more than 1,000 patterns of fraudulent behavior, which unfortunately are constantly being improved by scammers. Now, speaking of fraud trends in Southeast Asia region, the most common fraud types that are affecting companies are the following. The first one is phishing, like voice, SMS, email, which is a subtype of social engineering. It is the practice of deceiving, pressuring, or manipulating people into sending information or assets to the wrong people being informed. Social engineering is a fairly broad term that refers to a type of fraud when criminals influence a person through psychological manipulation in order to directly steal money or in order to obtain sensitive and personal data. For example, a passport data, login, a passport, an OTP, or anything from an online personal bank account. Now, for the subsequent commission of a crime and theft of money, this main channel are social media and phone calls. Next is the social media scams, investments, romance carried out in social media, etc. This type of fraud sometimes may be called as romance fraud, or also appeals to be basic human feelings. No need to say that most of those who are exposed to this type of fraud are lonely people. A fraudster uses stolen or fake account in dating apps or on the website, and a victim believes that they have made a connection or got a match with another person on dating websites, application, or in social media. The main objective of a scammer is to gain victim trust. Usually after a fraudster starts to ask for money on various pretexts, for example, it may be a significant amount to cover a cost of a flight, and a scammer may have even convinced the victim that they need to get married in order to receive inheritance and demand reimbursement of lawyer expenses from a victim. Another one is remote access. Remote access technology are very popular in the IT industry. The scenario of remote access application is quite extensive. Testing programs, solving technical issue, remote work setup. However, over the past few years, financial institutions have seen how these technologies may do harm to both lenders and potential borrowers. The increased growth rate of online fraud is caused not only by technological advanced fraudsters improving their tools, but also by expansion of remote access technology used by a wide range of individuals, including technically advanced ones and much less tech-savvy. And lastly, virtual machines may be a great instrument for dealing with issues related to data protection and safe program delivery, code testing, software performance research. However, the use of such technologies in order to obtain financial services may indicate users' malicious intent and therefore high risk for the business. There are a lot of different types of fraud, but they have one thing in common. When occurring, it brings a lot of damage in terms of financial and reputational losses for all online businesses. Now, these are the current situation in Southeast Asia region with some figures. Fintech growth in Southeast Asia is largely being driven by the burgeoning middle class in each of the large Southeast Asia economies. For example, in Indonesia, the middle class population is already around 54 million, and the next 40 million are the aspiring class. where the improvement in income and daily lifestyle are soon to come. When it comes to digital transformation, the financial services sector is at an inflection point with embedded finance leading the charge. FSIs that significantly invested in digital capabilities during the COVID-19 pandemic already have more agility to adapt to the trends now reshaping the sectors. Those that took a more cautious approach are now focusing sharply on gaining the technology, data and analytics capability that will be critical future enablers to modernize and push their business forward. As you can see, organizations lose from 5 to 25% of their revenue to fraud each year. While online businesses is growing and will continue to actively develop, it may lose more in the future. The accelerated growth of digital economy in the region will find it more difficult to sustain if users lose trust in the payment system owing to fraud cases. Southeast Asia market is in need of strong and effective anti-fraud and risk assessment, AI, machine learning-based digital tools for underwriting and credit decisioning for customer, which meet all the regulatory requirements. The problem of fraud detection with the development of online services and the emergence of numerous financial products on the market. The number of companies ready to render the services also increased dramatically every year. Industry leaders give high priority to product parameters and characteristic, customer experience, client base expanding, and keeping the loyal customers. The reverse side of this process is increasing complexity of client risk assessment via online channels, as well as rather large proportion of high-risk user who sometimes may come to the website of financial institution with malevolent intention, and company have to divert significant share of resources such as data collection, technology, and staff to reduce risk and to detect these fraudulent users. The most common fraud risk detection method is like doing blacklist and negative markers, blacklist on the passport name, devices, whatever may be included to the list. Default based on credit card bureaus, online traffic checks with unlimited number of negative triggers, injection, time zones, mismatch, etc. Now, the question is that enough? Are we sure that these markers are really dangerous? Expanded verification of data provided via cross-checks like phone numbers, email, cards, checks, and biometry is actually part of the verification data provided. However, these steps help solving only some part of the problem. But what can be done in those cases when a person is not trying to manipulate a personal data, but still is a high-risk client? Blacklist and verification help solve this problem based on the information from the past. What should we do when an applicant's bad intention? JuicyScore team believe that apart from providing the markers themselves, it is also necessary to pay great attention to the information, value, and methodology of data usage regarding the risk assessment process. We have developed a number of methodologies and approaches that allow us not only to identify high-risk segments, but also to perform segmentation as well as risk assessment throughout the entire application flow. And today, we will provide you the detailed information about one of these approaches. One of it is the device authentication approach. In our case, we examine approach to fraud prevention based on device characteristic. This methodology is based on great focus on the device, accurate and precise authentication, identifying the various parameters that characterize the device, its environment, and how it is used. But why do we pay so much attention to the device itself? The most obvious reason is that it's related to the fact that often, such assessment may be enough for making a decision about financial product application, Well, there's no need to store or process users' personal data, and a direct identifier such as full card numbers, photos, email, passport data, etc. Despite of the huge investment in the companies to the IT infrastructure, as well as organization measure cases when direct identifier, contact information and sensitive data fall into fraudster hands are unfortunately quite common. This may lead to the loss of information, cause damage to reputation, and resulting in financial losses to all parties. The second advantage of this methodology is the predictive power. Device analytics allow to assess the risk of all internet connection with a level of information availability of 99.9% plus and identify the virtual user intention in most cases at the first attempt. Speaking about physical device, a support element of this technology is a set of instruments which allows to identify different variation in the randomization and virtualization. The device itself is the aspect of distortion in the process of device authentication. Virtualization issues have recently been in the spotlight of many experts' attention, and today we would like to give you a detailed information about JuicyScore approach to assess risk on device virtualization and randomization, as well as discuss some aspect that online businesses owner needs to pay attention to and focus on. Physical device in our paradigm is used when a person applies for obtaining a financial product or user's personal account login. Most common laptops, smartphones with more or less typical software without any serious anomalies in software or program components may be regarded as such type of device. Within the category of physical devices, we also distinguish new and repeated devices. The risk level of repeated ones may, in some cases, differ significantly from the level of risk of the new ones. Virtual device. It is a device virtual machine deployed on a physical device that is used for non-typical activities of a user with unknown intention. Usually such as virtual device may be either not designed for making operation connected with financial activities, for example, to apply for a loan, for credit cards, etc. Or maybe it's just related to gray legal area. Speaking of randomization, we imply that the use of any software or code used for adding various anomaly for device fingerprints, obfuscation, users' activity concealment. One can randomize a physical device or add some interference to virtual device, and in terms of our categories descriptions. Now, online fraud prevention trends in virtual machine and randomizer detection itself. We developed a few ways which proven to be the best boating in virtual machines and randomization. The virtual device make companies' IT infrastructure operations much easier. It's also increased productivity due to resource optimization. However, the use of such technologies in financial product and services obtaining may indicate users' malicious intention and therefore may lead to high risk for the business itself. The best practices on the virtual machine as well as fraud prevention randomization detection itself is that from this slide itself, We are constantly discovering new tools for detecting social engineering technologies. Based on our data, we can say that the number of sessions with signs of remote access is about 2.5 until 3% of the total flow of application itself. And then this fact may serve as the signal for online lenders that it is high time to pay attention to such application and introduce additional verification. For example, by means of repeated verification, creating a pop-up warnings for user, temporarily blocking activity, conducting financially significant transaction, creating a list of allowed device prints of an existing client, comparing device ID or device fingerprints during registration as well as logins, analyzing other behavior markers. All of these steps will significantly reduce the risk of fraud, which in this case may cause not only the risk of material losses for both parties, but also generally reduce trust in entire customer segment in the online channel of banks and other financial institutions. Now, according to JuicyScore itself, 60 until 70% of professional social engineering scams follow this pattern. So an unknown user received a call from an unknown user. And the scammer fraudulently lures the data reporting false information. Like they persuade them to give out personal information, their OTP, their email, their mobile credential. And during those time, while the scammer is doing this scamming, they are collecting the victim's personal data. And then afterwards, the data is collected. They make a purchase, card-to-card transfer, or apply for a loan on the user's behalf on an online platform itself. The dynamics of devices with signs of remote access itself is that the number of application in the flow of sign of remote access by region by percentage is following this fluctuation in statistic itself. The regions in Europe, Eastern Europe, Africa, South Asia, APAC, and Latin America, where areas the orange line is the middle trend itself. Now, the online fraud prevention trends and how do we spot this remote access best practices? So every day, in our daily life, we are always using our smartphone, our daily life, our laptops, any devices. Then the best practices for us to devise this remote access is that to identify the dangerous plugins and randomizers specific to this remote access spottings. Active dangerous application and remote access application on the device spotting, injection during online session spotting, specific anomalies in the traffic characteristic of the device and its connection spotting, as well as device parallel activity present spotting. Now, by means of repeated verification, creating pop-ups warning for user, temporarily blocking any activity, conducting financially significant transactions, creating a list of allowed device prints for an existing client, comparing any device ID fingerprints during registration and login, analyzing other behavioral markers. All of this step will significantly reduce the risk of fraud, which in this case may cause not only the risk of material losses for both parties, but also generally reduce trust of entire customer segments in the online channels of banks and other financial institutions. Speaking about the true power of the alternative data itself, it lies in its ability to be converted into a meaningful information that businesses can utilize effectively. What happens if you need to find out about a specific person without any credit history? What happens if you have a borrower or onboarding customer when they are not in any database or any credit bureau history? Then you move into this alternative data. The strong points of this alternative data is the data that they give you is a real-time data. So the moment they come in, they give you the data, they extract you, and they give you the vectors as well as the parameters for this specific customer. You can also understand this customer behavior and preferences better because it's their device. It's a device that they use on their daily life, in their daily activity. It can also give you a holistic view of prospective customer. The holistic view of prospective customer often hard to understand because we are not putting our shoes on their shoes. So the way we assess this device ID and data is the way we want to try to understand them. And we also gain some insight into key life events from the device. Now, JuicyScore provides this new age fraud check and credit scoring, where we provide this device intelligence. It's an alternative data that focuses on the fraud check via the device of the customer, which also embed with the machine learning model. The API itself provides a stable device ID along with the data vectors for about 220 predictors. And the parameters that we analyze is a shocking for about 65,000 plus parameters. And the solution that we help is to identify high-risk application that we help preventing multi-accounting and also provide an alternative data for credit scoring. We create the most stable device ID in the world, which minimizes type 1 and type 2 errors at the same time. We have a wide technological stack of randomization, anonymization, and virtualization detection. And we develop a technology which help to detect whether a device is under an external control or from a remote access. The markers that we spoke on the previous slide is that the behavior markers includes the user behavior on the lender's web resources, application, and credential stability. One of the valuable insights of the behavior itself is our aggregated index on user behavior. It is if it's a remote access, if it's a duplicating ID, if it's number of correction that they're anxious while filling out the form, then we would know from this behavior data markers. The device marker itself consists of various of device parameters and characteristics as well as anomalies which may be used for fraud rules. You can see and assess their device screen, their memory, their manufacturer, even the aggregated index on the device behavior, and the quality of the device itself. Is it a longer type of device or is it the newest version of device in the market? The device type itself, even untypical device screen geometry. Next is the connection data. The connection data includes markers on various of networks parameter and characteristic and anomalies as well as anomalies that may be used for fraud rules. You can assess the IP country of the borrower, the type, the city that they are sitting in, and then the embed score on the connection markers, as well as internet infrastructure quality index is highly influencing the overall fraud score from JuicyScore. Device software data that includes markers on various software characteristics as well as anomalies which may be used for fraud rules. The browser that they are using, they are an open console, the OS that they are using, the browser version, even any suspicious software that is being installed in the device, it's influencing the whole aggregated score on stock markers. Now, how AI as well as ML help in fraud prevention management? In the whole idea itself, AI as well as ML is helping building a certain combination of rare events, each of which occurs a small number of times, and we manage to achieve the significance and statistical strength of the combination of such strength in such events. The whole variables included in the indices necessarily have a similar nature and transparent mechanism of formation, which allows to achieve their stability. Over here, we have two use cases from our previous studies. The live POC was run for two companies. One of it is web-based and another one is mobile-based. For both companies, the latency data was provided, which was used for attributes and score model design. So let's go to the company one. The pilot was run on a web channel for PDLs. The company size is medium. It was less than 100,000 applications per month. And then it has a very high delinquency rate on issued loans portfolio and observed together with the number of data and technical inconsistencies. And what was the key outcome? The implementation of auto-reject policy may have helped to save significant losses and at least show at least 5 times data ROI on that first company. Moving on to the second company, the pilot was run in Q1 2020 on the mobile application only for PDL's company. The company size was also medium. It was less than 200,000 applications on a monthly basis. The company is using a lot of internal data attributes to scrape via native mobile application. It has a very high delinquency rate on issued loans and was observed together with the number of data and technical inconsistency. Implementation of auto-reject policy on the outcome itself, it has helped them to save significant losses and to show at least 5 times data ROI. Additionally, approved application in the green zone and provided another at least 3 times data ROI. Now, the case study for fraud prevention and score model enforcement on AI and ML approach of the key inputs is that the company has a very good key outcomes. The JuicyScore data and score showed that its efficiency for a number segment, the client with a good credit history and a bad internal score, can uplift the approval rate up to 1.5% in an absolute number. The clients with bad credit history and good internal score, the segment approval rate uplift is 2% in absolute number. The clients without any credit history, the segment approval rate uplift is 1% in absolute number. And the bad client who were approved, the segment risk level decreased by just 2% of additionally declined application. And then another pointers is that we can add a new attribute for the risk score model internally, new angle to analytics and client segmentation, and new fraud patterns. Now, going into the compliance side of JuicyScore, we do not collect any personal data or store personal information. We make it work. So any personal information related to the device owner, such as passport number, contact or SMS, or even their photos in their internal storage, is not extracted by JuicyScore. We only focuses on the device data and the other 65,000 parameters that is not related by personal information. Now, still, why AI as well as ML? The main problem of all Chief Risk Officer and Chief Informational Officer is that all activities aimed at risk management and anti-fraud is reactive rather than proactive. To prevent fraud before it happens, forcing it rather than deal with its consequences. There is such a problem when risk officers need to make sure that we are covering all the data needed, how to make sure that there are no data we are overlooking. And sometimes it's really difficult drawing a line between just suspicious indicators and clear fraud. They're losing times and resources on looking into these cases and that are not fraud, and not looking into the cases that specifically are fraud because the line is not really clear. For JuicyScore itself, we use more than 220 parameters for alternative credit scoring. Basing on them, we give you a response containing risk assessment and data factors for risk strategies and your decision engine, as well as your decisioning process. So yeah, that would be the end of today's presentation. Feel free to reach out for any question, or if you want to book a demo, if you want to have more product insight on JuicyScore and how we have helped our past customer until today.